Game of the weekend. Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills, the MVP Bowl, and the final game of the divisional round of the 2025 NFL playoffs. Here is the full statistical breakdown. If you've never been here before, you've never seen one of these videos, welcome in. My name is Max. I make these every single week for the biggest NFL playoff games. And as time goes on, college basketball and NBA. So if you're not part of the family already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those future videos. But I'm giving you the best information possible based on coverage data, run scheme metrics, overall logistical information, and past matchup data to give you an edge in making your picks and predictions for this game as well as the other three. This game will be out. This breakdown will be out before the kickoff of the first divisional round game, the Kansas City Chiefs, Houston Texans at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. This video will be out before then, and there are links for that breakdown as well as the other two games in the description here. Before we get into this breakdown, I do want to make sure you guys see where all of my picks are on the different apps. If you go to the description, there's a link for my Instagram. That's where all of the picks are. That's where absolutely everything is, especially as it relates to touchdown scores, especially as it relates to parlays, any straight picks. That is all on there. If you like X a little bit more than Instagram, make sure you follow on there. It's very similar, but that's where all my up-to-the-minute live stuff is. So if you're somebody who likes live bets, you like to watch the game, see how it's going, see which players are doing well, which are not, and make a bet based on that, that is the best place to follow me. And I will tell you guys, as of yesterday, I guess I'm recording this Saturday, Friday, January 17th, I have launched something very, very special. It's my first ever sports betting brand. If you like sports betting, you like the lifestyle around it, I highly suggest you support my new brand called Chalk. It's the very top link when you click on my link tree in the description. You can follow it on Instagram, on YouTube, on X, whatever you got to do. There will be merchandise coming out over the next week or so, but this is a community of like-minded individuals. If you're watching this video, you're probably part of the community that love sports betting culture. So if you're not following that already, make sure you do. It'll also help me get it off the ground. I appreciate you guys big time for supporting that. Without further ado, though, let's get into this breakdown. Now, a lot of you guys know these two teams played each other in week 4. That game is going to look, or did look, a lot different than how I think this game is going to look this weekend or this Sunday night. The Ravens beat them 35-10, but it's also very important to understand the Buffalo Bills were without multiple big starting players. Matt Milano, the main one. You see Derrick Henry at almost 200 yards on the ground in this game. He ran right through them. While I do think Derrick Henry will have a lot of success, we'll talk Bills run game numbers in a minute here. I don't think he has 200 yards again. I think Matt Milano coming back can almost cut that in half, to be honest with you. But as you can see, the leading receiver, and we're going to talk about both of these guys because the numbers love them, Khalil Shakir on the Bills side and Justice Hill on the Ravens side. When you go a little bit deeper at the Bills, though, you can see the guy with the most catches was Dalton Kincaid. It's all on the inside, which is very interesting. We'll talk about that, the target rates, what the Ravens do defensively here in a second. But those are the two guys through the air. James Cook was really a non-factor because they were winning by so much, they kind of had to abandon the run. And then on the run game on the other side, Lamar Jackson ran the ball pretty well. Justice Hill had 4 carries for 18 yards. Derrick Henry, obviously, with 200. And then in the pass game, nobody even came close to Justice Hill's production. And look at this, the second leading receiver in terms of overall catches, Derrick Henry. Now, if you don't know already, the Ravens are without Zay Flowers for this game. That's the number 1 receiver. So as we break down the pass data for the Ravens offense against the Bills defense, you're going to see his name a couple times. Understand he's not playing. He falls down the list if he's not playing. The other guys bolster up in terms of targets, target rate, all that good stuff. Let's talk Bills defense. Let's talk Ravens defense first because they've been elite the last 5 games. You can see the data outliers throughout the entire season right here, right? Ton of pass attempts allowed, pass yards, running back receptions, running back receiving yards, receiver receptions, receiver yards, tight end receptions, tight end yards. Basically, their defense overall holistically has stunk this year. But the last 5 games, they've been really good. When I find these outliers, it's teams that are in the top 12 of a statistical category. The Ravens' last 5 games are not top 12 in any defensive statistic category. Top 12 meaning yards allowed or receptions allowed. So it's at bottom 12 in terms of overall production. Now, they've been really good as of late. And in that process of becoming really good and playing better, the Ravens have just been running more man coverage. It's been a little bit of a shift in the defense. They were running a good amount of man to begin with, but especially as of late, they've really been trusting their DBs and their man coverage has been at a much higher rate. Now, the Bills got a very man coverage heavy team last week in the Denver Broncos. As you guys know, we were on Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid straight, Khalil Shakir in one of our parlays, and they both hit. Those are the two main guys against man coverage in terms of target percentage, receptions, and yards per route run. Now, Keon Coleman is a very interesting one because he's the main out wide guy. And when you look at where the Baltimore Ravens are getting targeted, out wide versus slot, out wide is getting targeted at a much higher rate statistically. But here's the issue. Josh Allen is below average in terms of frequency and how often he throws that ball out wide. But he's in the top 10 of how often he throws it in the slot. And when you look at the slot production, the number 1 route runner, Khalil Shakir, and the number 2 route runner, Dalton Kincaid. So those are the two main guys. And we'll pull up their projections here in a second. If you guys are not on Pickett, obviously make sure you get on. There's a link in the description for that. You can follow me on there. As soon as I make a pick, it'll just show up on my app too. So if you have notifications on for that, you can see that very quickly. But all my picks, everything I actually take and put money on will be on there. But Dalton Kincaid in this, you can see 29.5. It's not the true line, but let's get this out. If you guys didn't see, we're on a Sam Laporta touchdown for the game on Saturday night. But Dalton Kincaid, in terms of overall receiving yards, true line of 30.5. To me, I think that's a little bit low, especially when you go look at the Bills-Broncos game from this past weekend. Obviously, that big catch was not a catch, but he garnered a few targets. He had 3 for 47. He was a mainstay in man coverage. He was getting targeted against man coverage. He, again, is the main guy against man. I can't stress that enough. He is the main guy against man as it relates to target percentage, how often he is being targeted against man coverage when he is on the field. Now, the Ravens are not only going to run man coverage, but like I said, since week 9, second half of the season, 9th most in the entire NFL. That's been the trajectory they've gone on. And a lot of teams have played man against the Bills and seen more success against zone, which is very interesting, but more success than zone, excuse me. But Dalton Kincaid is the main guy. 30.5, truthfully, guys, I like it straight, especially how good that Ravens defense has been on the ground. Khalil Shakir is the other one, though, because the Ravens really haven't allowed wild elite performances from opposing wide receivers as of late. And when they have, I'll show you who it's been. It's been dominant outside guys. I'll pull this up. Game logs against for the Baltimore Ravens. The dominant outside guys have been more successful against the Baltimore Ravens as of late. You can go back to the playoff game. Obviously, George Pickens, 5 for 87. Jerry Jeudy had 63. Nico Collins was the leading receiver. Really, there are no other receivers on the Texans you throw the football to. But Nico Collins here. George Pickens didn't play this game, so it's tough to tell. But Malik Neighbors, 82. Wan'Dale Robinson didn't have a crazy game there. A.J. Brown was the leading receiver here. Obviously, no Devontae Smith in that game. The last time the slot receiver was the main producer against the Baltimore Ravens defense was Ladd McConkey, who really is their only receiver. And even then, Josh Palmer had more targets than him. So outside wide receivers are really the bread and butter on how you attack this Ravens defense. But we talked about it. Josh Allen doesn't throw the ball out wide a ton. And the Ravens are allowing an above average target rate to the outside. So I go back and forth on this one. I think Khalil Shakir, when you look at his projections overall, right, the true line is about 50, 51 right here. I think if you want to put him in a parlay at 40 yards, it's good. I like that a lot, and I could trust that. In terms of overall receptions, he's sitting at 4.5, like 4 catches if you want to put that in. I like that. I'm not going to take him straight, though. I don't feel super comfortable doing that because of the frequency in which the Buffalo Bills, the lack of matching in the frequency, because the Bills will throw to the slot, but the Ravens don't allow a ton there. And ultimately, Dalton Kincaid is the main guy from the slot to begin with in terms of target percentage. So I would feel much more comfortable leading into his yard straight at 31 compared to Shakir at 51. I would feel much more comfortable. And as we saw with that Kincaid non-catch but catch, it could come in one play. That was a 34-yard catch, if I'm not mistaken. So I like Dalton Kincaid straight. Let's talk run scheme data, and we'll transition from that into the Bills defense here in a second. But in terms of overall yards per carry, actually, before I do anything, I want to mention the weather. Because it is going to play a factor. Now, here's the thing, guys. Everybody's freaking out. This is the bane of the existence on the internet right now, on X, whatever it may be. You see one fake tweet saying it's going to be a snowstorm, and everybody thinks it's a snowstorm. Now, I'm not a weatherman. That could very well be a snowstorm. But you look at this. Snow showers, 20% chance of precipitation, not a ton of crazy wind. Even the humidity is going to be at 70, almost 70%. Like, It's not going to be the snowstorm, I think, that everybody thinks. Like when you think of Bills playoff game snowstorm, you think back to that Bengals game a couple years ago. I don't think it's going to be like that. And even if it was, you can still throw the football in the snow. So I'm not reading into the weather too much. I just wanted to make that clear in case it was going through any of your guys' heads. But let's talk run scheme data, because when you look at the overall defensive data, his Baltimore Ravens run defense is the best in the NFL. 3.55 yards per carry. That's best in the NFL. Overall rush yards per game. 80.1. That's best in the NFL in terms of explosive run percentage. So 15+ yard runs. You can see best in the NFL. The bottom line is the Ravens are really good against the run, but they're also not going to allow a ton of attempts. They run a ton of middle field close. Cover 3, they'll roll somebody back into the box. They stop the run, and they give you pre-snap looks that make you not want to run the football. So when I look at James Cook, as well as he's been playing, I'm not going to lean into that at all. I think you could lean into the overall receiving production, but I'm not going to lean into his rushing production at all, because even though he's hot, even though the Bills' offense is rolling, there's not enough on the Ravens side that makes me feel really comfortable with James Cook. Josh Allen is another thing, because when you play man, you run the risk of missing a blitz or somebody picking up Josh Allen, breaking the pocket and having a very big run. The last time they played a really man-heavy team, you can go back to that game against the Broncos again. Josh Allen had 8 for 46. Like he is a very important piece in man coverage against man coverage because he runs the football. But again, I can't confidently look at something, especially a defense like the Ravens, who's going to fly around, who did a really good job on him last time as well, and say, I really believe he's going to have a great game on the ground. The two Bills I like are Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid, and I feel moderately confident in them. If you want to water down James Cook because he's been red hot, I don't hate that, but something straight with him, not touching it. Same with Josh Allen, Keon Coleman. Let's talk other side, because this Bills defense is kind of the polar opposite of the Baltimore Ravens defense, right? They play a ton of zone, the 8th most zone and the 5th most middle field open. Now, like I said, Zay Flowers is out, and overall, the Bills are giving up the 9th most pass attempts, 10th most, this should be pass yards, 2nd most running back receptions, remember that, most running back receiving yards, remember that, and 10th most wide receiver yards. In the last 5, it's been pretty much the same, just allowing more yards outside to the receivers and tight ends. Target percentage against zone, you guys see who's number 1, right? Justice Hill. Yards per out run against zone, you see who's number 4. Receptions against zone, you see who's number 2. Targets, you see who's number 4. It's the Justice Hill show. Now, I want to go into the snap counts, because I want to ensure both of us, you who's watching this video and I, feel confident enough in his snap count since returning from injury. So you look at the running back snap counts. He missed a few games here. Immediately, game after coming back, Keaton Mitchell did not get a snap last game, guys. Justice Hill got almost 30 snaps, almost 40% of snaps, and immediately had a bigger role in a game where, they kind of dominated the Steelers, and the Steelers aren't going to allow a ton of running back production. That's the bottom line. Or running back receiving production, that's the bottom line. But he came back from missing pretty much 3 weeks, but 3 weeks from an injury, immediately stepped in, 30 snaps, 40% of snaps, and he was their true number 2. So when they get into those pass situations, Justice Hill is going to be very important. Like I talked about, this Ravens team very, very heavily used him in the game that's last time they played against the Bills. He was the focal point in the pass game, 6 for 78 and a touchdown, and even on the ground, almost 20 yards. So when I look at him, just overall, scrimmage yards, receiving yards, I'm at least intrigued, right? Now, receiving yards here, 20's a lot. 20's a lot. And truthfully, that straight scares me a little bit. But you can go look at his rushing and receiving yards. They don't really think he's going to be involved on the ground. Here's the reality. Against this Bills run defense, which we'll talk about in a second here, I think the Ravens still have an edge, even with Matt Milano back. So I would like to, if you wanted to put something in a parlay, like 25 scrimmage yards for Justice Hill, I think would be great. It would take 3 carries and probably 2 catches, and I don't think that's an issue on either end. Now, his reception prop is what I'm staring at, because it's going to be checkdowns, especially when you get into that position. The only issue is minus 150 is not a great line. But I think there's something you can do in this game that I really, really like. We just talked about his scrimmage yards. He's going to be a focal point, very important. And if I had to take anything straight, like gun to my head, had to take something straight for this game with Justice Hill, it'd be his receiving yards, 21 plus receiving yards. But you see this, right? And this feature is only available on Pickett Pro. If you guys are on Pickett, you may not be on Pickett Pro. It's like $25 a month. If you don't want to get on it and don't want to pay $25, I understand. But if you're someone who bets on these games a lot, you bet every day on the NBA, college basketball, whatever, It's going to continue to give you the best lines possible for all of these games. So if we go back to Khalil Shakir and you look at his alternate receiving yard, let's say 40 yards, you can see here, like plus 108 here, but minus 105 on DraftKings. And then if we wanted to go let's add Dalton Kincaid back in the mix. Dalton Kincaid, let's just say we took his yards straight, so 31 receiving yards. You could go here, like it's not even close on places like Hard Rock, DraftKings kind of close, but FanDuel. If you wanted to find the best possible odds for what you want, Pickett Pro is the way to go. No pun intended, I know it's a rhyme. But Khalil Shakir, Justice Hill, Dalton Kincaid all together is what I'm leaning. Here's the very interesting thing, though. We talked about the run defense metrics, and the Bills have been better. They've been better since Matt Milano's come back. But 14th in overall rush yards per carry. In terms of rush yards per game, they're actually below average because teams will throw on them. But here's the issue. It's the Baltimore Ravens, and you have a two-headed monster in the backfield. This game is not going to be a blowout on either end, I don't think. And if it is a blowout, it's going to be the Ravens. I don't think the Bills can blow this team out. But if the Ravens keep this close, Derrick Henry is going to be the focal point in this offense. Nobody wants to tackle this guy in January. Nobody wants to tackle this guy in the cold. He is the best player outside of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, on the field in this game. And nobody is going to stop him from getting his touches. I look at Derrick Henry, what he has done recently, and look at his yardage projection. Like I said, I know Matt Milano being back really, really helps this defense. But 95 yards, I think, is too low. I think it's too low, especially when you go look at his game logs. I think it's too low. I think when you look at what he's done against good defenses, it's been pretty special. Like right here, Derrick Henry, look at this. His lowest yardage total in the past month is 138 yards. That was against a pretty solid defense. Houston, very good run defense, 147. Pittsburgh, very good run defense, 162. Again, Pittsburgh, 186. Truthfully, I think his number against the Giants was capped a little bit because they were winning by so much. But again, you can look back. Philly, good run defense, 82, so shut down a little bit better. Philly is the king of time of possession, though. I don't know if Buffalo is going to be like that. 140 against a good run defense in the Chargers. He can produce against good run defenses, and as time goes on, he gets better. I think 95 yards is too low. But there are a couple more things we do have to talk about with this Bills defense because there are other edges we can find. You see the target rates. In the slot, getting targeted at the fourth highest rate, and the backfield getting targeted at the second highest rate. When it comes to where they throw the football, Lamar Jackson throws the ball in the slot a lot. Now, last time the Ravens played the Steelers were also a moderately slot-heavy team in terms of where they allow targets, and we lean into Isaiah Likely. Now, against zone, there's nothing that makes me love Isaiah Likely. He's, top 4 in most categories, but he's a guy who has stepped up with Zay Flowers being out because Zay Flowers was their main slot guy. You can go look at the snap counts for Isaiah Likely too. I'll pull that up before we look at his numbers. You go look at the snap counts for Isaiah Likely last week, 80% of snaps. That's actually more than Mark Andrews, but you look at this. He's been playing a ton over the past month, but with Zay Flowers out, played 80% of snaps. That was his highest the entire year. He is now a focal point in this offense. I look at his projections in a zone-heavy game. 3.5 receptions at plus 140 is really good, but his yards at 36 I think is a little bit too low as well. I think Isaiah Likely continues to be a focal point. We were on his yards straight last game, and it crushed. Definitely a different defense, but a very similar trend where you're going to allow a lot of slot targets. Isaiah Likely stepping up in the slot with Zay Flowers out. He is going to be maybe not the main guy in the pass game, but a very important guy in the pass game. So I like Isaiah Likely a lot. Couple more pieces of information before we move on. Obviously, we talked about Derrick Henry rushing, but Derrick Henry receiving, you remember last time they played, he had 3 catches. He was actually the second leading receiver against this team. Look, if you want to lean into a scrimmage yards and you don't trust the run data that much, I don't know why you would do that. Actually, let's look at the difference here. But I don't know why you would do that if you don't trust the run data. But I do like his scrimmage yards too because he's going to be able to run the football, I think, pretty successfully against this team, unless his scrimmage yards are, his rush yards, 95, 96, unless his scrimmage yards is like 100 on the dot. You know what? I don't hate it. I actually might be more inclined to take this because he will get a catch or two in this game. I might be more inclined to take the 99.5 scrimmage. If it's around the same odds when kickoff comes, again, you got to make sure you're following the Instagram and X to see what I pick. But that is what I like in terms of player props, in terms of this overall game, guys. I think this is going to be a very close game. I say this is the MVP Bowl. MVP's already voted for. We'll see. But as much as I think the Bills will play the Ravens better, as much as I think the Bills are healthier, and the Bills are playing really good football, I think Baltimore is the better defense, and I think Baltimore is the better quarterback. That's the bottom line. And I think the Ravens can win this game. Maybe not handily, but I think they can take care of business on the road. And the biggest thing for them, if they can avoid getting away from their offensive identity, like really bold prediction for you guys. If the Bills win the coin toss, I think the Bills take the football. I think the Bills try to get ahead of them. If they can avoid the other team getting ahead of them and can stay in their true identity where Lamar does not have to be a drop back passer where they're losing by a touchdown, they're going to win this game. They're going to win this game. And I know a lot of people are picking Buffalo because they're red hot, but I trust Lamar and I trust the defense. That is the biggest thing for me. The Ravens defense, when they played the Bills the last time, was also not playing well. They were less banged up than the Bills were, but they were also not playing well. And they held them to 10 points, and now they're playing probably the best football they've played all year. That is the big thing for me. I think they take care of business defensively. And it's hard to stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, both of them. And then the pass game mismatches with Isaiah Likely. I think the Ravens get this done. Let me know what your score predictions are. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like. We will have a national championship brief breakdown for you. That'll be out either Sunday evening or Monday morning. If you want to make picks on that, I'll tell you what I'm on. Truthfully, I have an Ohio State future, so I'll be on that, but I'll make something else for you guys. But throughout the next week, we'll have some offseason breakdowns as well as AFC and NFC championship breakdowns. If you guys haven't seen already, I have a future on the Eagles. I picked them to win that game, but I also have a very small plus 3,300 future on the Rams. So we will have a future in the NFC championship. We have a Ravens future. That was my preseason prediction, Eagles over Ravens in the Super Bowl. So we're on the Ravens here. We'll see what happens. But till next time, God bless you guys. Thank you for watching.